Few conservatives today know that there are actually two basic kinds of conservatives, and the movement, along with the Republican Party, split into two different factions beginning back in the 1960s, resulting in the neocons, the neoconservatives, or the new conservatives, taking control. Neocons are similar to rhinos, Republican in name only, but are particularly interested in foreign policy and are known for being war hawks who use the military-industrial complex to intervene in the affairs of foreign countries. They are globalists as opposed to nationalists, although they portray themselves as patriotic by flexing America's military power and sending other people's kids to war while theirs hang out in the coffee bars at Ivy League universities. Paleoconservatives, on the other hand, are the true conservatives. They're the traditionalist Americans who tend to be Christian and oppose open borders and the LGBTQ agenda and have a strong sense of national pride. Instead of being concerned with nation building in foreign countries, they prefer a more isolationist foreign policy and focus on localism. In other words, they don't support wars in the Middle East, like the war in Iraq or the latest flare-up between Israel and Gaza, not just because wars are almost always started by lies, but because paleoconservatives don't want the United States sticking its nose in other countries' business and wasting our money and our resources on foreign countries' problems. There are some other nuanced differences as well, such as paleoconservatives tend to oppose free trade, which they see as harming America's manufacture sector by allowing cheap goods to be imported from foreign countries without making them pay tariffs, and instead support what's called trade protectionism. The term paleo means older or ancient, just like the paleo diet refers to a diet humans are believed to have eaten during the Paleolithic era a long time ago, and is used to differentiate traditionalist or classical conservatives from the new or the neoconservatives, the neocons. This is the kind of nuts and bolts material that you'll find in my new book, The War on Conservatives. Aside from keeping up with the day-to-day news or the fake news, it's also important to know your history, and knowing where you were helps us understand where we are and gives us a much better perspective on things. So hopefully we can navigate our way into a future that we want, not one that a bunch of bureaucrats and lobbyists in Washington, D.C. want, or the future that a bunch of mainstream media mockingbirds want. So order The War on Conservatives in paperback from Amazon.com. Or click the link in the description below, and it'll take you right to the listing. But continuing with our discussion about neoconservatism versus paleoconservatism, Ben Shapiro, for example, is a staunch neocon who supported legalizing gay marriage, and he tries downplaying that position to conservative audiences by saying he wouldn't personally attend a gay wedding, but he does support it as an institution. In response to somebody who claimed that he didn't, he answered that he's been libertarian on same-sex marriage for years before Obergefell, referring to the 2015 Supreme Court case, which ultimately legalized it. And Ben Shapiro, like all neocons, supports any Middle Eastern war or military action that would either directly or indirectly protect Israel. Now we're getting into some controversial material here, but you really should read what's going on in my new book to get the full story. The neocons were the ones who concocted the weapons of mass destruction hoax and the lie that Saddam Hussein had a relationship with al-Qaeda to dupe the American people and the rest of the world into going along with the invasion of Iraq in 2003 to carry out their project for the new American century. 3 years earlier, the PNAC neocon think tank were complaining that their plan would be difficult, quote, absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor. The 9/11 attacks were their new Pearl Harbor, and 2 years into the war on terror, the aim shifted from Afghanistan, where Osama bin Laden was supposedly hiding out, to Iraq. And contrary to popular belief, this wasn't just to steal their oil or preserve the petrodollar. Another reason was to protect Israel, America's greatest ally. But you're not supposed to say this out loud, though, or post about it on social media. That's another anti-Semitic trope, they say, so be careful. In 1981, Israel bombed a nuclear reactor in Iraq out of concerns that the country would become a nuclear power and pose a danger to them, since Iraq was allied with other Arab countries in the region during the Six-Day War, or the Third Arab-Israeli War in 1967, which broke out as a result of the ongoing hostilities between Israel and their Arab neighbors ever since the UN mandate in 1948 officially creating the State of Israel, which resulted in 700,000 Palestinians losing their homes, an event known as the Palestinian expulsion. This is forbidden material for all mainstream conservative talk show hosts and Republican members of Congress. This is one of those things they will not touch. The Israeli-Palestine conflict is a 75-year-old mess in its current iteration, and it's something I'm not very interested in because I'm an American and I don't have a dog in the ongoing fight over there about which ethnic group controls which parts of land. But obviously, Israel has been concerned about its Arab neighbors ever since the creation of the Jewish state, and Iraq was still considered a prime threat to them in the early 2000s because of the possibility that they may acquire nuclear weapons in the future. So when George W. Bush was beating the war drums and saying that Iraq posed a threat to the United States, which it didn't, and our allies, he was talking about Israel. This is why Republicans like Mark Levin and others consider any criticism of neocons to be anti-Semitic and deem the word itself to be essentially an anti-Semitic slur.
No, we're not neocons. What does that mean exactly? Just another phrase, for the anti-Semites. Oh, you must be a neocon. Oh, I can say that left and right and nobody can accuse me of any. Oh, you're a neocon. Or you must be a militarist. You want intervention all the time, intervention? No.
The neocons. Soldiers are the neocons. I'm sick of this anti-Semitic bullcrap. Not neocons.
There's so much more, you really have to read my new book, but few people make the distinction anymore between neocons and paleoconservatives because the neocons want to portray conservatism as if their kind of conservatism is the only kind, and try to frame paleoconservatism without using that term so people don't look into the paleo-neocon split as an ancient relic, a political belief system that's no longer practical in our modern age. William F. Buckley, in his publication, The National Review, made it their goal to purge the paleoconservatives from the Republican Party in the 1960s. One of their prime targets was the John Birch Society, which was formed in the late 1950s to oppose communism. But their hard stance against globalists and globalist organizations like the United Nations, the Council on Foreign Relations, and the Bilderberg Group was seen as a hindrance to the neocon agenda, so they strategically worked to exile them. The remaining paleoconservatives who survived William F. Buckley's purge in the 1960s were mostly pushed out of mainstream Republican politics in the early 1980s as the rift continued to grow. These were people such as Pat Buchanan, Paul Gottfried, Joseph Sobrin, Samuel Francis, Russell Kirk, as well as organizations like the Rockford Institute and the Philadelphia Society. The John Birch Society is still in existence today, although it's just a shell of its former self and hasn't had any significant power since the 1970s. So for decades, the neocons have been the ones steering much of the Republican Party, until Donald Trump came on the scene and ignited a populist movement and shook the political establishment to its core, resulting in the all-out war to impeach and imprison him. Although the term is rarely used to describe the MAGA movement, much of it is paleoconservative. And while there are countless conservative media outlets, very few make the distinctions about just what type of conservatism they promote. There are some exceptions, however, including Talkies magazine, The New American, which is published by the John Birch Society, the American Conservative, Chronicles magazine of American Culture, the Intercollegiate Review, and a few others. There are also some organizations dedicated to the philosophy, such as the Charlemagne Institute, the publisher of Chronicles magazine, VDARE, the Family Research Council, the American Family Association, the Conservative Caucus, as well as the Constitution Party, the American Independent Party, and Gun Owners of America, a pro-Second Amendment group that positions itself further to the right than the NRA. As mainstream conservatism in America continues to drift to the left, we'll likely see a resurgence of paleoconservatism, even if it doesn't overtly use the term, as millions of Christians and conservatives become activated and work to turn things back to the right, rejecting not just liberalism, but neoconservatism as well. So it's not just Democrats that we're up against. We're up against neocons who have been working from within the Republican Party to sell out America and sell out our money and our troops overseas to fight wars to protect borders of foreign countries while ours remains virtually wide open, enabling 20 million plus illegal aliens to invade and make themselves at home in America. There's a lot more to this issue, like I said, and many others facing our nation that I detail in my new book, The War on Conservatives, which you should order in paperback from Amazon.com or download the ebook from any of the major ebook stores. If you enjoy watching my videos, you'll really love reading my book. So order The War on Conservatives in paperback from Amazon.com or click the link in the description below and check it out.